I'm Mike Uyak. I love to try new things, and I've had culinary adventures all around the world, as well as right at home. I've had really wonderful food, as well as some really horrible food. I'd like to share some of my adventures with you, and we'll see if I have what it takes to fix whatever goes wrong. This is Recipe Redemption.
Hi, I'm Mike Uyak, and I make poor life choices. Allow me to explain. In recent months, I've done several videos in which I taste test vegan or vegetarian options for traditionally meat-based dishes to see if our food technology has advanced to the point where those vegetarian or vegan options were indistinguishable from the original. Spoiler alert, it hasn't, and they aren't. But we're getting closer. However, the contrarian part of my weird little brain strives for balance in many things. I can't claim balance in all things, but I'm working on that too. So I thought, what about food for people who think there's already too many vegetables in their diet as it is? Now, I know what you're thinking. Just eat a steak, or a sausage, or a big plate of bacon. Oh, we can do all those things and more, but just as a thought experiment, can we take something that has meat and vegetables in it and make it meatier? So naturally, since I just finished a couple of videos focused on pizza, I took a look at the Meat Lover's Pizza. The Meat Lover's Pizza is great and doesn't really require any redemption. But for the sake of argument, what could be replaced to make it more meaty? Well, the crust, for starters. Think of all those carb calories that could be profitably replaced with tasty, tasty meat. The sauce is another area that could be rethought. Maybe we can replace the plain tomato pizza sauce with something like a bolognese. What? Oh, yeah, I know bolognese has tomato plus typically a mirepoix of onion, carrot, and celery, but it's got meat in it, so it should work, shouldn't it? No? Well, still too many vegetables? I've got an idea.
I'm going to start by laying a sheet of plastic wrap on my cutting board. I'm going to sprinkle it with a little bit of water. This is going to kind of lubricate things a little bit, make it a little easier. And laying a hamburger patty down in the middle. And then laying another sheet of plastic wrap on top of this, loosely. Then I'm going to take my favorite rolling pin, and starting from the center, I'm rolling outwards. The idea is I want to keep this intact as much as possible while squishing it down, spreading it out till it's, well, pizza size, but also, more importantly, about 1/8 of an inch thick if I can. And as you get thinner and thinner, it gets a little bit more difficult to actually spread it out. But that's basically what it looks like. Do that to a second one, and then peel one of the sheets of plastic wrap off the top and start seasoning with garlic powder, onion powder, a little bit of dry basil, and some dry oregano. And a little bit of salt and some freshly cracked black pepper if you feel like it too. Then, lay on some bacon. Just have a few strips of bacon that I had already cooked up. And I want there to be a little bit of room in between the strips, but not a whole lot. And then take the other meat pizza and sort of slap it on top. Try to make it line up, but if it's not perfect, it's no big deal. And then use the rolling pin again to kind of squish it down. You don't want to completely pulverize the bacon in the middle, but you do want to squish the beef down so that it sort of fills in the void areas in between the strips. And they'll crack a little bit, but they also will add a little bit of structure to this and hopefully will act kind of like rebar does. Okay, now you got to be really decisive about this because it's going to require you to flip this over onto a a rack on a baking sheet. The reason I'm putting this on a rack is I want the greases that render out of this to drain away. I want this to dry out and become crispy if possible. Now once I have this positioned well on the rack, I'm going to place it in a 350 degree oven for about 30 minutes. 30 to 40 minutes, and I want this to try and crisp up. Now for that sauce. Mind you, you made me do this. So I'm using some balsamic vinegar. This is on a bain-marie. I have a pot of simmering water underneath this. And I'm adding an egg yolk. And this is just coming up to temperature slowly. This is actually a little bit too hot. That came together a little too fast, but that's okay. I'm going to add just a little bit at a time some of the rendered bacon grease from cooking that bacon earlier. And then, once I'm ready, I'm also going to add just some old rendered pork fat that I had around from a roast pork. I don't even remember when. It was a few months back. But I have had it in my freezer for a while and finally had use for it. So, this is a mostly fat-based sauce. Kind of a hollandaise, but not really. A couple tablespoons of sriracha I'm adding to this. Yes, I know sriracha is made with chili peppers and they're a fruit. Fruit or vegetable? They're fruit? They're fruit, actually. Okay, yeah, sure. But it's for flavor, so I think it's allowed. So, after its time in the oven, my ersatz pizza crust looks something like this. It's kind of ugly, but what the heck. And I'm just going to use my barbecue brush to spread some of this sauce on it. Next, it's a pizza, so it needs cheese. I have not found anything meat-based that replicates what cheese actually does on a pizza. So I think since it's definitely not a vegan option, cheese is an allowable thing. It's still not a vegetable. On top of that, I have some diced ham. And I had one strip of bacon that didn't actually fit inside the crust, so I just chopped it up and we're going to put it on top. And what self-respecting pizza would go without pepperoni? This takes a little bit, so let's fast forward. There we go. And yeah, just use all of it. What the hell? And I just popped it back in the oven for like another 10 minutes. Pretty much all the meat is already cooked, so I just needed to melt the cheese. And there we go. Your meat lovers meat pizza with meat sauce and meat.
And voila. The meat pizza. It's not just a meat lover's pizza. It's a meat lover's meat pizza, where the pizza is made out of meat. I'm kind of excited about this. I'm a little afraid. Here we are. That is not bad. So, still requires a little experimentation to really perfect this idea. As you heard, or perhaps didn't hear, there was no crunch. It doesn't stiffen up the way that a gluten bread, like a normal pizza crust, gets. I could have probably baked the, pizza crust a little longer. In order to really make this crispy, it would mean basically overcooking the meat. Pressing it out even thinner might have helped, but this is still pliable. It's still fairly juicy, but it does hold together fairly well. Flavor's good. Not too salty. I was a little worried about that, the amount of salt that I added to this. But but really, it has kind of an Italian slant to a cheeseburger flavor, with the basil and the oregano and the garlic and onion powder in there. The sauce didn't really do anything, unfortunately. There might be a little bit of tang from the balsamic vinegar, but it's not enough to really cut through all of that meat. And this should come as no surprise. It's pretty greasy. It's possible if we made some concessions to practicality here, added a little bit of some sort of starch, flour, perhaps like an oat flour or something, to kind of soak up some of the juices and allow it to become drier. I think that the crust would have turned out a little better, and gave us a little bit more of a crunch without having to just vulcanize it. But it's a good first step in the direction of completely 100% meat-based foods. So, thank you for joining me on this experiment. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. As always, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and if you like this kind of content, don't forget to hit that notification button, the little bell down below that lets you know every time I post a new video. So, until next time, I should probably take some Tums and a couple of statins while I eat this. But until next time, I'm Mike Uyak, and thanks for joining me on Recipe Redemption.